Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So many of you are saying, this is one of the sweetest segments of Mornin Barbados, boy, when Dr. Denise Charles is on. And so Dr. Denise Charles, our relationship coach, is on. Dr. Denise Charles, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thanks.
I opened my paper this morning and there you were. It's like everywhere.
I was?
Yes. Okay,
you
let me
get away from me, Pearson.
You can't get away, just can't get away indeed. But that's not a bad thing. I'm not running from you. That's not a bad thing at all. And so today I want to look at the whole question of, cohabitating, co-parenting, not cohabitating, co-parenting, and when one of those partners have moved on to date someone else. And how do you now feel knowing that your child or children are being parented also by this other person? That, for a lot of people, triggers some really horrible reactions. Where do we start to unravel all of this?
Well, Pearson, I think when it comes to co-parenting, what is very important is that the parents recognize that whatever actions they're going to take, whatever they're going to do, it must be in the best interest of the child. You, as a parent, you have a child, and that child is your primary responsibility. All right. So whether or not you move on into another relationship, that child must always remain your primary responsibility and making decisions that would be in the best interest of that child. So I can understand if one partner moves on and they're now involved with someone else, and there's another figure in the picture raising that child, how that might make the other partner feel. Depends on your level of security. I think if you're a secure individual, you have been a good parent. You have a good relationship with your child. You are well adjusted as an adult. There really should be no major issues. You may feel a bit off at the beginning because you're human and there's now another adult involved in your child's life. And obviously, you're going to want that adult who is having some sort of access to your child is perhaps raising your child or influencing your child in a positive way. But I think that once you have done your job and you continue to do your job as a good parent, you really don't have very much to worry about. The problem comes, however, if that new parent is influencing your child in a negative way, or is introducing your child to values that you don't hold dear or that you don't espouse. I think that is where it can become ticklish, and that's where you can begin to feel maybe apprehensive and anxious about this individual who's now influencing your child. You may even feel jealous. You may feel jealous if the child develops a good relationship with this other parent. You may feel jealous of the new relationship between your previous partner and this new partner, that he has or she has. So I think you have to manage those emotions because you don't want any negative energy moving over onto the child and causing the child to feel that he or she is somehow at fault with respect to the new tension that has been introduced into this extended family.
So how on heaven's earth do you do that though, Dr. Denise? Because you're right, you're going to feel a way to know that I've just released my child into the care of the mother or the father, and this other partner is there. Now talking to my child and having a relationship, a moment, and I'm wondering what's going on here. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult to examine.
And that's why I spoke of the need for the parent to always have a good relationship with the child. Now, if you have an issue with your child and you don't have a good relationship, I can see a problem. So I think when it comes to articulating our feelings, I think that we are always required to be honest. We always have to unpack the emotions that we are going through in any given moment. Now, not everybody's good at this. If it isn't something that you have trained yourself to do or that you're accustomed to doing, you're not one who normally reflects, then this may be a bit difficult for you to handle because sometimes people are angry and they don't know why they're angry. People are anxious and they don't know where their anxiety is coming from because they're just not in touch with themselves or they're not in touch with their own emotions. But if you begin to feel strange or you begin to feel anxious, you begin to feel tense at the thought of your child being raised with someone else, I think you need to step back, take some time to look inward, reflect. Why do I feel this way? Is it that I think this person is influencing my child in a bad way, or can potentially influence my child in a bad way, or do I feel that I'm somehow losing my child? I
Yes.
don't know if everybody is going to be as honest as that, but it really
Mm-hmm.
requires that sort of self-examination and reflection, and perhaps speaking to someone about it. But I think even before you begin to speak to someone about it, you need to speak to your co-parent. Okay, you need to speak to
Mm.
your partner and let him or her know how you feel. Now, if y'all have ended in a bad way, your relationship is kind of adversarial, you don't speak properly, then that is going to also spell danger for the child, because whether or not someone else is involved, whether or not that person has moved on, if you end your relationship in a bad way, and you don't seek to repair it for the sake of the child, then that child is in some sort of emotional jeopardy, because children are extremely sensitive. And sometimes parents don't give them the kind of credit that we need to give them. And sometimes we think a child, oh, she's young, he's young, they don't know
Too
what's
young.
going on. But
Yes.
believe you me, children know. They know. They may not be able to articulate everything. They may not talk to you about it. When I think of my own childhood, I didn't talk to my parents about a lot, but I observed a lot and I
Mm.
internalized a lot. And a lot of the emotions that I experienced went with me right into my adulthood. So I'm thinking that it's very, very important for parents to allow their children the space to talk. And if you are feeling anxious about the new relationship, the new parent, as it were, if we want to call it that, that person, that the child may also be feeling some level of anxiety. The child may not be as well adjusted as he or she appears to be.
Mm.
Children often do as they're told, especially within the context of our society and how we raise our children. And we don't always raise our children to articulate their fears, to articulate their sense of anxiety or anything like that. So very often children feel these emotions, but nobody knows.
So the child comes back from a weekend away with whomever, and the child wants to talk. I don't want to hear
Yes.
about the other partner. I don't want to hear about the other partner. So what do you say to the child? How do you stiffen yourself to the point where, you know what, for the sake of the child, you talk. But I really truly don't want to hear.
I think now, depending on the age of the child, you have to manage this very carefully. If it is a young child is not going to understand all of the nuances of a breakup and all the nuances of a relationship that has gone sour. And I think you have to allow the younger child to speak. Allow that child to just be a child. And if the child rattles off about some activity that he or she did over the weekend, they went out somewhere to eat, they went somewhere and had fun, a party or something like that, you just need to let the child talk, listen, ask questions, and in terms of and be the adult.
Yes,
In
yes.
terms of your being the adult in this space and not being a child yourself, you can learn and understand what is happening in this new home environment that your child has been exposed to. Now, the older the child is, you can perhaps be honest, and this depends on the type of relationship you have with your child. There are some parents who will speak to their older children. For example, the child may be 12, 13, 14, about a breakup. They will let the child know how they feel. I really don't like the fact that daddy and I broke up, or mommy and I broke up. Things are a bit tense between the two of us, but we're trying to make things work. Sometimes you may see us argue, or you may feel a little bit of tension between us, but it has nothing to do with you. And you assure the child that he or she is loved and accepted despite that breakup. But if you don't talk to your child, believe you me, children are very good at owning their parents' breakups. They're very good at feeling that they're somehow responsible. And if they sense ongoing tension in the relationship, they may think, well, it's because of me. I'm the person who's causing them to always fight or to always disagree. So it's important to have that conversation when your child is older, even as old as 8 or 9, because our children are exposed to a lot on social media and on television and so on, and they're not innocent in the sense, if you understand what I'm
Yes,
meaning when I'm
yes,
saying the word
yes.
innocent. They understand a lot about the world, and we need to have those conversations. When I was a child, I wish someone had conversations with me, because certainly I owned a lot of the things that I saw and internalize a lot of my mother's pain. So it is important for us to have these kinds of conversations so our children are in on a better emotional plane, as it were, and we don't burden them with the things that we are experiencing and going through as parents. We have to adult. We have to be the adults in this setting.
Should we do the examination? You know, you come home, where did you all go? What did you do? Who is this in? Tell me a little bit about the house. Let me look into your bag. Let me see what you did. Or should we do that? And you know, a lot of times people do so because they're hoping to catch something. What does that do to that child and the relationship with the co-parent?
I think you can do it wisely. It doesn't have to be obvious, okay? If you've been a good parent, you would know that from time to time, depending on the ages of your children, you might search your children's bags from time to time. I don't know how many parents do that. You know, you search your child's bag when that child comes home from school. It's not that you don't trust your child, but you know that children are children. And children will be children. Even though you raise your children with particular values, you know, you still know that they're going into spaces where they could be influenced negatively by other people, whether their own peers or other people. So I think, you know, you can go about surreptitiously searching the bag, and you can ask some questions wisely. It does not have to be obvious. You know, you don't have to drill down and ask 20 questions one after the next, as if the child is on some type of oral exam. You know, you go
Exactly.
about and you do it in a very relational way. And really, what should be motivating you to do this is the best interest of the child. You're not trying to get back at this man or get back at this woman. Because if you're operating out of that type of bitterness and you're operating out of that type of anger, what that is saying is that you really haven't resolved the issue of this breakup. And if you haven't resolved the issue of the breakup, you are actually in a very unhealthy space. And being in that unhealthy space will not only impact the relationship you're having with your child, it will impact your whole life. It will impact your whole life. It will impact your potential relationships to come in the future if you don't settle and bring some level of peace to the breakup. So it's very important. But I know that sometimes these things take time. And depending on what happened when the relationship broke up, you know, whether you were actually married and it is a divorce, or even if you were together for a very, very long time, you know, and you separated after a long connection and you have more than one child, or even if you only have one child, you know, the situations can vary from person to person and from relationship to relationship. But it's very important to deal with any lingering issues that you may have. Take some time to step back, do some internal reflection and introspection, and seek to understand where you are at emotionally. Be honest with yourself. If you feel you haven't really let go of this man or you haven't really let go of this woman, do what you need to do in your mind. It may not happen overnight, especially if you were deeply tied to this person. You really love the person, but it just didn't work out. You know, these are things that you have to work through so that you can bring closure. Because what ongoing emotional turmoil in your mind could suggest is that you haven't really brought closure to the relationship, even though it's ended.
It's hard though for a man to know that, you know, for the majority of the child's week, for instance, it's in the care, his son is in the care of another man. And he only gets the child on 2 days of a weekend. Out of 7 days in a week, he only sees the child for 2 days. But for the 5 days, the child is living under the roof with another man who is not its father. What advice would you give to the man in this situation where that occurs?
I would say learn to maximize the time you will have with your child. I know we say we think a lot in terms of quantity when it comes to relationships, but it is also about quality. And I know that you may want to know you have more time with your child. And if you do want to have more time, you could ask the mother to give you more time. I don't know what type of relationship the two of you may have within the context of our particular scenario. But I think it is important. The most important thing in my mind, and how I would advise a father in that scenario, is to maximize the time you do have with your child. And spending quality time with your child, taking the child out or having the child in your home is one thing. But maintaining a relationship through phone calls, through WhatsApp messaging, you know, even doing video calls, being in that child's life, having a sustained interest in the child's life is, to me, what is most critical. You're not just spending time with that child on those 2 days and that's the end of it. You know, you maintain an interest. You check in during the week, even when the child is not with you physically. You can check in with your child. It's your child. Now obviously, if the mother is not giving you access to the child via the phone or via social media, etc., then there are implications that there are more serious challenges that you may need to look at in another way. Where you might need to bring in legal counsel or something, depending on what the arrangement that you have. But I would say from the outset, it is important to look at the quality of the relationship in the long term and how you plan to maintain that quality relationship outside the context of those 1 or 2 or 3 days that you may have to actually have physical access to the child.
Ah, girl, this is so much to unpack indeed, because it's happening so much more often, more readily now across the
Yes,
island,
yes.
and our social media commenters are really commenting on all of this, and they're really active this morning and talking about all of this. And you're quite right. If we keep the child at the center of why we're doing what we're doing, and we put aside our emotions, how we feel one for the other, for the sake of the
Yes,
child, so much more can be
yes.
achieved.
I
I
think
love to
that's
watch.
really important.
Me too. I love to watch Judge Judy. She puts it squarely. Both of you created this child. Both of you have equal access to the child, and therefore you must be able to communicate one with the other for the sake of the child. She said it plainly. She keeps saying it.
Yes.
And I say the same thing for her, with her as well. And so I know you do too, Dr. Denise Charles. I want to thank you as always for helping us through this as a relationship coach. You make it seem so easy. I know it seems easy, but you tell us what we have to do. You say it to us. It's like giving us the medicine without the sugar. We get it. We get it immediately. So that's the tough
Let's
love
hope
that we love to
so.
have. Yeah. Someone says, wow, Dr. Charles, you look lovely and the beautiful smile is infectious.
Oh dear. Thank you so much.
I'm telling you, they're watching you. They're watching you indeed. Thank you as always, Dr.
Pearson,
Yes, please.
can I invite the audience to join me this evening at
Yes.
8 p.m. for my
Yes.
live talk show on Facebook Live, Love Story 246? We're going to be talking about self-love and how important self-love is. We know that we're in the season of love and the season of Valentine's, and it's not just about your partner, your love for your partner, but it's also about your love for yourself. And we're going to be unpacking self-love and seeing how that can also impact your relationship and impact your life on the whole.
It's
What it
on
is and what
social,
it's not.
on Facebook
On
today
Facebook.
at 8
Yes,
o'clock.
Facebook Live tonight at 8 p.m.
All right, folks, Facebook tonight at 8 o'clock. Self-love. How to love
Yep.
yourself. Better understanding yourself, and then hopefully it impacts better on your relationship as well. Dr. Charles,
That's
thank you
right.
so much. Facebook Live tonight at 8 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome indeed. Our relationship coach, Dr. Denise Charles, we took a look today at co-parenting and how to manage yourself and your relationship with a child when the child finds itself in an environment where the other partner is living with another person. They've moved on, you haven't yet, but the child is in the center of all of it. How do we do so?
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning.